I discussed in my last video that I've had a lifelong interest in studying history. As an undergraduate in college, I had three majors, and one of those was history. I took over 60 semester hours in history courses, including about 25 at the postgraduate level. I have continued reading books and studying history since graduating from college in 1973. One of my interests in college was studying Soviet Union or Russia violations of its treaty obligations. I am not aware of a single treaty in the modern era where the Soviet Union or Russia has actually honored its treaty obligations. In 1973, the U.S. declassified previously secret documents that related to the Soviet Union's compliance with the Sino-Soviet Treaty of 1945. This treaty was between the Soviet Union and the non-communist government of China, which is now the government of Taiwan. Russia promised to cease aiding the Chinese communists who were attempting to overthrow the internationally recognized government of China in exchange for concessions that China made. Russia violated the promises, and the UN General Assembly so held in February 1952 and Resolution 505. This topic involving Russia's compliance with that treaty was sufficiently interesting to me to order two books from the General Services Administration that contain those formally classified documents, and to write my honors thesis on that topic, which I did. I had been studying Soviet violations of other treaties, including the Yalta Agreement, signed in early 1945, almost contemporaneously with the other Sino-Soviet Treaty of 1945. In the Yalta Agreement, Russia accepted language that governments in Eastern Europe would be on an interim basis be, quote, broadly representative of all democratic elements in the population. The Russian army had occupied those Eastern European countries. The agreement further provided that the governments would promptly and as soon as possible be established, quote, through free elections of governments responsive to the will of the people, end quote. Russia, of course, violated those treaty obligations as shown quickly by historical events. Free elections were never held in those Eastern European countries and were never held for as long as the Soviet Union controlled them. All non-communist parties were suppressed by the Soviets, and the free press was destroyed, as it always will be, by an Orwellian government. Nothing has changed. Russia claims that it has not violated the Budapest Memorandum, which it has clearly and repeatedly done. The Russian version of free elections, I probably should put that in quotes, in eastern Ukraine territories occupied by their army, achieved the same kind of results that the, quote, free elections did in Eastern Europe when those countries were occupied by Russia or controlled by Russia. Over 90% of the voters elected to do whatever the Russian government wants to do. And that is, of course, a sham election. It doesn't matter whether the election is being done at the direction of a czar or someone like Putin or Stalin, the result is going to be the same. It is not, in any sense of the word, a free election. The bottom line is that when you study Russian history, it will never comply with a promise that is viewed as important by the other signatory to the agreement. It will take what it is given. Anne Applebaum summed up the obvious point succinctly as it applies to Ukraine in a recent article published in The Atlantic. Quote, Ukrainians know that negotiation with Russia are fruitless. They also know that military law still means the same thing it meant when Russia invaded in February 22. Occupation, mass repression, concentration camps, and the end of an independent Ukraine. That is an obvious observation that Anne is making there.